weaken cultural identity, distort values, and spiritual African heritage. Catholic education in Africa is positioned to serve as a guiding light, a lighthouse that helps our youth navigate the challenging waters of global influence. Through blind imitation or retreating into isolation, encouraging them instead to develop into proud Africans, devoted Catholics, and responsible global citizens. In fact, when discussing Western influence, we are referring not just to its geographical roots, but to a collection of cultural, political, economic, and ideological patterns that have emerged as dominant in the global landscape. This influence, whether positive or negative, is conveyed through various channels of communication. The mass media, it encompasses various forms such as television, music, film, and notably social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, ranging from Hollywood films to European football broadcasts, and from TikTok dances to Netflix series. Fashion and consumer culture, global brands and trends, influencing the aspirations and identity of African youth beyond mere character. Philosophy and worldview, enticement of all kinds are tempting young people of Africa, including radical ideologies, secularism, radical individualism, transgenderism, sex, money, drugs, casual sex, violence, and moral relativism have become more prominent in African countries. These things destroy and have destroyed the future of many young people in Africa. They have destroyed their ideals, hard work, and their commitment to their human, intellectual, and spiritual formation. Let's go now to the impact of Western influence on African youth. That's number 2. Dear brothers and sisters, as previously noted, it's important to recognize that Western influence is not world instrumental. The influences of Western science in general, democratic principles, technological advancements in every sector, and human rights initiatives have frequently yielded positive outcomes for Africa. Yet, the issue emerges solely when Western influence achieves a global reach and dominance, particularly when African youth start to perceive themselves exclusively through Western perspectives and assess their worth and progress according to Western criteria. This reality compels us as Catholics and as Catholic educational institutions in Africa to confront the truth that our African youth find themselves entrenched in a cultural struggle. Consequently, within this framework, one might rephrase St. Paul's instruction in Romans 7, verses 14 to 20, by stating that the actions of African youth are beyond their comprehension, for they do not engage in actions aligned with their desires, but rather partake in those they detest. There are also positive aspects of Western culture. We must acknowledge the positive impact of Western culture on African youth educational progress. Western influence has enhanced access to literacy, numeracy, information, and reading proficiency via the internet and global publications. It has and continues to introduce innovative pedagogy and educational resources, fostered international collaboration in science, health, and technology, and heightened awareness of global social justice issues like climate change, human solidarity, friendship, ecological responsibility, and human rights. Moreover, the Ivy research and teaching in the field of education have both benefited from the recent investments by Western countries in artificial intelligence and its use in this field. There are, however, the negative aspects of Western culture. I just go through them quickly. You have the rapid cultural and moral erosion. You have the moral confusion and the relativism. You have also the African indigenous language decline. You have the identity crisis. You have the problem of consumerism. And you have also asked young people heavily relying on Euro-American education system, and of course even our education institutions. And currently in many African countries, educational frameworks and references are based on educational or American curricula. They have imported colonial curricula that often disregarded African realities, including indigenous languages, pedagogy, curricula, cultures, customs, and values. This poses a significant threat to the African future. As Cardinal Robert Sarah warns, quote, "A people without roots are a people without a future." Africa must resist the temptation to lose itself in imitation and instead contribute its own unique gifts to the world. End quote. Let's see the legacy and mission of Catholic education in Africa, something that has already been communicated to us here, the importance of the missionaries and the war work they did to Africa and to the world mission of formation. Maybe I don't go to read everything here. I only ask you to go and read for you the final remarks I made here. Grounded in a social principle of preferential option for the poor, the church is expected to serve as an educator for the poor, facilitating their genuine economic and social liberation. The Catholic Church has consistently regarded education as the most significant expression of Christian charity. Consequently, the objective of Catholic educators is commendable for the world human development. However, it's a mission littered with problems, as Pope Francis reminded Catholic educators, where he said, quote, "Yours is a mission full of obstacles as well as joys. A mission of love, because you cannot teach without loving." In this regard, according to Pope Leo XIV, quote, "Since ancient times, Christians have understood that knowledge liberates, gives dignity, and brings us closer to the truth. For the church teaches the poor was an act of justice and faith, inspired by the example of the Master who taught people divine and human truth. She took on the mission of forming children and young people, especially the poorest, in truth and love. This mission took shape with the founding of congregations dedicated to education, and this is what has been done by all those who dedicated themselves to the work of formation and special education to our young people. Now let's go to number 4, which is about the signs of hope in the African context. Of course, referring to the youth now and the way we have to the youth get educated in a proper and reliable way. Dear brothers and sisters in Catholic universities and institutions, notwithstanding the above mentioned negative aspects of Western influence, there are vibrant signs of optimism that underscore the resilience of African youth. Firstly, evangelization campaigns spearheaded by African young people are still going strong. Christian faith, servant leadership, and social responsibility are still being shaped by organizations like the Young Catholic Workers and the Young Christian Students. Young people are taking the lead in several dioceses, catechetical activities, social media, evangelism, and charity activities. Secondly, inculturation that is creative is thriving. Without watering down Catholic teachings, many African Catholic schools and parishes are incorporating African art, music, and dance into their educational curricula and liturgy. In doing so, we answer the call of Ecclesia in Africa for assurance that the liturgy becomes ever more expressive of the genius of the African people. And thirdly, the rise of faith-based entrepreneurship in Africa, inspired by the social ethical principles of human dignity, common good, solidarity, and subsidiarity found in Catholic social teaching. Young Africans are utilizing digital tools driven by artificial intelligence to advocate for suitable agriculture, ethical business practices, ecological responsibility, and African products. Faith-driven entrepreneurs in Africa are also typically distinguished by their ethical business practices, compassionate leadership, and dedication to social justice. They perceive each business more not merely as a profit-generating opportunity, but as a chance to impact their community and reflect their values. The rest, I just leave it to you, and you can read it when you get my paper. Now, we have to preserve, definitely, the African cultural values. This is number 6. What we have to do here, specifically, it means the keynote speech understands African cultural values as the foundational principles, beliefs, and practices that define the identity, behavior, and social dynamics of African communities. These cultural values collectively emphasize Ubuntu ethics, which include interconnectedness, community and solidarity, that's communalism, respect for elders and authority, hospitality, spirituality, harmony with nature, and the dignity of human life. These values are frequently transmitted through family, oral traditions, and customs, shaping interpersonal relationship and societal interactions. I want now to go to my last points. And important here will be a call to action and some practical responses to the promotion of Catholic education as a sign of hope for African future. Considering the realities presented above, I extend this call to pastoral action to the diverse stakeholders of Catholic education in Africa and beyond, urging them to champion Catholic education as a beacon of hope for the future of Africa. What should each one of us do about it? We suggest here 5 practical responses, but not limited to them. Firstly, for educators in Catholic schools in Africa, we urge you to teach the youth of African critical thinking skills. Encourage prudent debate, as lack of debate kills creativity and problem solving. Keep curricula balanced and include civic education and African history and culture. Encourage project-based learning and problem solving. The second one would be for parents and local communities in Africa. We encourage you to embrace the mode of questioning and respectful disagreement at home. Shikome, a place of evening fire in the family where the African drumbeat and the gospel song are in harmony, where the wisdom of our African ancestors is transmitted and walks hand in hand with the light of Christ, the teacher par excellence. Share stories, log history, interaction, and intergenerational knowledge with your children. Limit passive consumption of single-source media and discuss what kids watch, read. We also wish you to embody the African values you wish for your children to adopt and inherit. Thirdly, for African young people themselves, we wish you to practice media literacy, critically check sources of information, cross-verify facts, join civic groups, volunteer, learn debating and research skills, read widely from different viewpoints, and talk about what you read. Fourthly, for church leaders in Africa, since many African countries recognize the eminent and disinterested role played by church through her educational structures in building up their nations, we strongly encourage you to continue to invest in Catholic education that unites faith and reason with African identity. Fifthly, for policymakers and civic actors, we would like to ask you to invest in teacher training and free access to diverse information, protect academic freedom and independent media, create youth participation channels. In collaboration with the Catholic Church in Africa, policymakers and civic should always raise the awareness of governments so that they will increase their support for Catholic education. Conclusion. Esteemed colleagues, as I draw this keynote address to a close, I must assert that the cultural waves of Western influence are unlikely to abate. They will persist in shaping the thoughts, perspective, choices, and behaviors of the young people in Africa. However, should their African heritage be profound, encompassing culture, faith, critical thinking skills, and moral values, the youth of Africa will remain resolute. They shall remain steadfast. The education provided by the Catholic tradition should therefore continue to serve as a profound means to cultivate these foundational principles. The Ghanaian Akan say, quote, "The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people." In short, Catholic schools, colleges, and universities in Africa should always be considered as particularly important among all educational tools. In addition to carefully cultivating the intellectual faculties, they should also aim to develop the capacity for right judgment, pass on the African cultural heritage of past generations, cultivate a sense of values, and prepare students for the morally upright workforce for church and society. As the Catholic University of Eastern African Educational Vision stipulates, Catholic schools should create, in a sense, hubs whose work and advancement must be shared by families, educators, governments, associations of all kinds that support cultural, civic, and religious life, civil society, and the human community at large. They should also foster amicable relationships and the spirit of mutual understanding between students of diverse backgrounds and abilities. My dear brothers and sisters in Catholic universities and institutions, I sincerely thank you for your listening, and may God bless you all.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for your insightful presentation. It's truly illuminating the complex interactions between the Western influence and the African youth and our our own identity, and therefore, as we keep marinating in that wonderful information, eventually there will be a question and answer segment, which will be also short. But we want to welcome the next presenter. So the next presenter will be Reverend Professor Leo Lefebvre, Georgetown University, on the role of Catholic universities and scholars or theologians in today's world's crisis, hope, and challenges. Most welcome.
Thank you. Your Eminence, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this Congress for the invitation to share with you some thoughts on Catholic theology and education in our current situation. In October 2025, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of Gravissimum Educationis, the Declaration on Christian Education of the Second Vatican Council. This declaration calls us to develop true education, which, it says, quote, aims at a formation of human persons which is directed towards their final end, and at the same time towards the good of society of which they are members, end quote. It also acknowledges the pluralism in societies and calls for education to include openness to ecumenical and interreligious dialogue. This declaration complements the call issued in Gaudium et Spes to read the signs of the times and proclaim the gospel appropriately to each context. I will speak in light of the experience of Catholic educators and theologians in the United States, which is the situation that I know best, and I look forward to learning from all of you about the variety of contexts here in Africa. And many of the challenges will converge with what we just heard from His Eminence. I'll just be coming from a different angle. The context of higher education in the United States today is deeply troubled. And I expect that other regions of the world face analogous challenges. One all-embracing challenge is the commercialization of higher education. Contemporary American society's interest in education supports a technocratic vision of society. It seeks economic profit in order to gain more power and prestige, especially through the development of the STEM disciplines. Now, Pope Francis cogently analyzed the danger of this technocratic worldview in Laudato Si and elsewhere. A technocratic program for higher education systematically brackets consideration of the final end of the human person. It reduces the good of society to technical and economic progress in pursuit of greater power and prestige, with little concern for the poor, the excluded, or for the natural environment. In many institutions of higher learning in the United States today, there are fewer and fewer offerings in the humanities, as faculties and students promote technical education in science, engineering, business management, and mathematics. The rapid development of artificial intelligence and the expectation of new forms of artificial superintelligence compound the situation. AI poses very serious questions about teaching, research, and evaluating student performance. With each new development of technology, the situation becomes more complex, with no end in sight and ominous threats emerging on the horizon. In a technocratic atmosphere, many American institutions favor economics, business administration, law, biotechnology, and computer science, while marginalizing or eliminating altogether teaching and research in the areas of the humanities, especially theology and philosophy. Administrative decisions often hinge on academic rankings in the popular press, which can be misleading. As James Heft comments, college degrees are valued by most consumers according to how much graduates will be paid. In response to this challenge, Georgetown University has established the new Georgetown Humanities Initiative to focus attention on the traditional Jesuit values of the liberal arts. This includes a series of discussions of what makes us human in the age of AI. Nonetheless, the ongoing tensions are strong and clear. A second challenge concerns how we deal with conflicts past and present, especially the tangled, tragic history of our societies, in order to seek the common good today. North American society is rooted in the conquest of indigenous peoples, bias, racism, and mistreatment of peoples from Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We have a history of slavery and economic and social discrimination and exploitation. So educators today inherit a tragic history of racism against people of African, Asian, Pacific Islander, and Latin American origin. And also we inherit a history of religious bias against Jews, Muslims, and practitioners of Asian and indigenous religions. The older colleges and universities on the East Coast of the United States all have a relationship to slavery. Our community at Georgetown, like many university communities, is going through a major learning experience regarding our own history with enslaved persons. Slavery is like a thread in history. If you pull on the thread, many other fields come into a different focus because they are interrelated without that relationship being readily apparent. We are part of an international consortium, Universities Studying Slavery, which involves universities who historically benefited from enslaved labor in some way. At Georgetown, we are wrestling with the memory of enslaved laborers who worked on plantations to support our institution until two Jesuit priests took a tragic decision during the banking crisis of 1838 to sell at least 272 enslaved persons to assure the survival of Georgetown Academy. So in a sense, my presence here today is made possible by this tragic sale which allowed Georgetown Academy to survive financially the banking crisis. In the spring of 2017, both the president of Georgetown University and the leader of the Society of Jesus in the United States and Canada publicly apologized to the descendants of the enslaved community who worked for Georgetown. Jesuit and Georgetown leaders have committed themselves to raising funds for humanitarian assistance in areas where the descendants live today. So we in the United States need dialogue with our colleagues in Africa and around the world to more fully understand our troubled past and our multifaceted present, and to discern the most effective steps toward a healthier future. At the ceremony where the president of Georgetown apologized, he acknowledged that we, the official leaders he was speaking for, cannot do this alone. They need the support of African American descendants of the enslaved persons. So aware of our historic injustice, Georgetown University, like many other educational institutions in the United States and elsewhere, has sought to develop programs for respect for diversity, equity, and inclusion in pursuit of restorative justice. These steps have led directly into a third challenge, our current troubled relationship with the federal government of the United States. The interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Edward R. Martin Jr., launched an investigation of the curriculum of Georgetown University's law school and threatened never to hire our graduates because of our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In response, Georgetown University today is suing the federal government of the United States in court for violation of the religious liberty of a private Catholic university. This lawsuit is still pending. One of the greatest concerns for Catholic higher education in the United States is that many government officials are seeking to control the hiring and research and the curriculum. I know each national situation is distinct, and I suspect in some countries there may be analogous concerns over governmental officials seeking to interfere in or control Catholic education. In recent years, protests on American campuses concerning the conflict in Israel-Palestine have led to some expressions of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The government of the United States is currently conducting investigations into anti-Semitism in colleges and universities and calling university officials to testify before the Congress of the United States. On July 15th of this year, the interim president of Georgetown University, Robert M. Groves, testified before the Committee on Education and Workforce of the United States House of Representatives regarding anti-Semitism and related issues. He detailed our long history of promoting interreligious understanding, including hiring chaplains for the Jewish, Islamic, and Dharmic traditions, the latter including Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, and Jains. We have a university-wide priority on interreligious understanding, which includes my own department's doctoral program in religious pluralism. So these interrelated issues of technocracy, historical injustice, government interference, and interreligious bias will likely continue to challenge us in the years to come. To address these challenges, Catholic educators need, above all, a vigorous renewal of the vision of a Catholic liberal education informed by the principles of Catholic social teaching and interreligious relations in a global context. On November 1st of this year, our Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, declared St. John Henry Cardinal Newman to be a doctor of the Catholic Church. Given all the controversies of his lifetime, this turn of events would probably have amazed Newman even more than the decision of Pope Leo XIII to create him a cardinal. I would like to suggest that Newman's wisdom concerning the concrete processes of learning and higher education offer us guidance in our own situation. Living from 1801 to 1890, Newman witnessed modernization and globalization on an unprecedented scale, with remarkable changes in politics, economics, science, technology, communications, transportation, and also the worldwide extension of imperialism and colonialism, particularly here in Africa. In such a rapidly evolving world, it was intuitively obvious to Newman that to live is to change. He was acutely aware of the challenges of modern science and technology, of the history of unjust discrimination, and of governmental interference with Catholic practice. While our world is in some ways very different from Newman's, we are also closely related to his world. He went through major changes in his own thinking and religious commitments, converting first to evangelical Calvinist Protestant Christianity, and then to Anglo-Catholicism, and finally entering the Roman Catholic Church. Even though he was at times fiercely criticized, he always defended his integrity at each moment of his intellectual and spiritual journey. In considering the development of Christian doctrine, he proposed the famous principle, in a higher world, it is otherwise. But here below, to live is to change, and to be perfect is to have changed often. So Newman would not be surprised to learn that the world has continued to change ever more rapidly. In his historical scholarship, he was always alert to both continuity and development in the life of the Church, trusting that the genuine treasures of the Church's heritage will continue to grow while corruptions and mistakes can be corrected over time. He was both profoundly affected by the modern world and also, in many regards, highly critical of it. He was, above all, a careful observer of his own mind. He always followed how our minds actually work in practice. His motto was, cor ad cor loquitur, heart speaks to heart. He believed that the heart, the moral and imaginative center of the human person, is the beginning and end of formal reasoning. He believed that all our abstract arguments are embedded in broader, deeper awareness of the whole person who reasons. Newman criticized those who thought abstract arguments by themselves could persuade people, and he argued, after all, we are not reasoning animals. We are seeing, feeling, contemplating, acting animals. We are influenced by what is direct and precise. Newman emphasized the vital importance of the imagination. He said, the heart is commonly reached not through reason, but through the imagination, by means of indirect impressions, by testimony of persons, facts, and events, by history, by descriptions. Strongly asserting the moral dimension of education, Newman believed that who we are shapes what we see. And so he focused attention on the character, personality, and the history of the knower. In addition to explicit formal reason, Newman believed there is an implicit, informal reason that is broader, deeper, and more diffuse, analogous to religious faith. He called this the illative sense, which has been compared to Aristotle's notion of phronesis, practical wisdom. This led him to be somewhat suspicious of abstract theories that risk losing contact with concrete reality. He believed that the central idea of Christianity, especially the incarnation of God in Jesus Christ, is more than any individual can ever fully grasp or comprehend. This leads to the sacramental, hierarchical, and ascetic aspects of Christian life and teaching. The idea develops and changes over time as people come to see different aspects and implications of the idea in different contexts. He believed that the deep inward consciousness of the Catholic Church exceeds any explicit formulation, though the Church can recognize and reject expressions that violate the central idea. Newman trusted that a true idea has life. This means it is not simply passively accepted. A true idea is an animating force. It inspires action and new applications. Even though people may not grasp the idea completely, it can move them nonetheless. So this development is a process of testing and exploration, of growth and examination. A truly great idea has the power to change the fabric of social life. And Newman believed that we often come to realize the truth gradually through a process of discovery. And this was his own experience. And so he commented, accordingly, the poet makes truth the daughter of time. Newman proposed an integrated vision that always seeks to learn more about new horizons and integrate them into the wisdom of the past. For Newman, this is an incremental process that should not be rushed. It has been commented that Newman, unlike Soren Kierkegaard, never leapt anywhere in his life. For Newman, we grow, we do not leap into new convictions. Newman proposed a careful model of accumulating new data, reflecting on them carefully, drawing out the implications, and making decisions that are better informed. He trusted that there is a universal offer of revelation from God to all peoples in and through their respective cultures. This needs to be carefully discerned, but it presupposes that cultures around the world have been shaped by God's gracious presence, even where the gospel has not been explicitly proclaimed. Newman's sensibility is important for our context today as Catholic education develops in very different situations around the world. We inherit a tradition that bears infinite treasures, but we never fully comprehend this, and so we always have more to learn. Newman trusted that there would be both continuity and development in each situation, and he challenged all of his readers, including us, to constantly expand our horizons. Now, for reasons of time, I'm going to skip over my sections on Bernard Lonergan and David Tracy, and I'll conclude by talking about Pope Francis and suggest that Pope Francis's comments on education converge strongly with Newman. So Pope Francis offered us guidance in addressing these challenges in ways that I think complement and develop the views of Newman and then also Lonergan and Tracy, who I don't have time to discuss. Pope Francis called us to develop global sapiential theologies. On May 10, 2024, Pope Francis addressed the members of the International Network of Societies for Catholic Theology, often known by the acronym INSECT, inviting them and all of us to consider more carefully the global context of Catholic theology today. We are more aware than ever of our interconnectedness, and we cannot understand our societies in isolation from each other. In Ad Theologiam Promovendum, on promoting theology, Pope Francis calls for Catholic theologians to develop a sapiential approach to theology inspired by Blessed Antonio Rosmini. He tells us, now the idea of wisdom holds truth and charity together internally in a solid circle, so that it is impossible to know the truth without practicing charity, because one is in the other, and neither of the two exists outside the other. Therefore, whoever has this truth has with it the charity that fulfills it, and whoever has this charity has the truth fulfilled. And so scientific reason, then, is challenged to broaden its boundaries in the direction of wisdom, so as not to dehumanize and impoverish itself. In this way, theology can contribute to the current debate of rethinking thinking, showing itself to be a true critical knowledge as sapiential knowledge, not abstract, but spiritual, developed on one's knees, pregnant with adoration and prayer, a knowledge that is transcendent and at the same time attentive to the voice of the people, therefore popular theology, mercifully addressed to the open wounds of humanity and creation within the folds of human history, to which it prophesies the hope of an ultimate fulfillment. And so Pope Francis was very concerned about the danger of isolation of academics from other disciplines and called for transdisciplinarity, a sapiential wisdom that crosses academic boundaries and unites. In what is perhaps his most powerful critique of the technocratic vision of education, Pope Francis issued a letter on the role of literature in formation. He emphasizes the value of reading novels and poems as part of our path to personal maturity. Resonating deeply with the literary sensibility of Newman, who was a great poet, Pope Francis tells us, literature also proves essential for believers who sincerely seek to enter into dialogue with the culture of their time, or simply with the lives and experience of other people. How can we reach the core of cultures ancient and new if we are unfamiliar with, disregard, or dismiss their symbols, messages, artistic expressions, and the stories with which they have captured and evoked their loftiest ideals and aspirations, as well as their deepest sufferings, fears, and passions? Pope Francis concludes his letter on the importance of literature by trusting in the power of the Holy Spirit animating the great cultural creations of the world. Thanks to an evangelical discernment of culture, he tells us, we can recognize the presence of the Spirit in the variety of human experiences, seeing the seeds of the Spirit's presence already planted in the events sensibilities, desires, and profound yearnings present within hearts and in social, cultural, and spiritual settings. Pope Francis expresses the hope the wisdom born of literature instills in the reader greater perspective, a sense of limits, the ability to value experience over cognitive and critical thinking, and to embrace a poverty that brings extraordinary riches. So the voices of Newman and Pope Francis converge in reminding us of the value of the humanities in expressing the breadth and depth of human experience, and of the need for theologians and all Catholic educators to be attentive to wisdom wherever it may be found. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, and in a special way, in fact, as Professor Leo Lefebvre, you were speaking, I remembered as a committee when we were trying to crystallize the thematic areas. We know that it was heavily a contribution of Pope Francis, and so thank you for alluding to his contribution, and much appreciated. So we have come to another segment where we will have a quick Q&A, and so the ushers, I'll ask that you be ready with the microphones. So if there's anyone who has a quick, burning Q&A to our two keynotes, this is your moment. So I'll be looking forward to either you raising your hand, or maybe somebody will bring a microphone to you, and we can have them addressed. Thank you. So feel free to ask any question to our first and second presenter. That is the presentation by Protes Cardinal Rugambwa, the impact of Western influence on African youth, the role of the Catholic education in preserving African culture values, as well as this other one, which has just been concluded, the role of Catholic universities and scholars or theologians in today's world crisis, hope, and challenges. So most welcome. If you have any question in French, it will be translated in Portuguese, in English, in Kiswahili. Yeah, karibuni. Any question? No question? I think that it must have been quite a chunk, food for thought, and as we keep thinking about those critical issues, also we know that very much we have to be hopeful of, there's lots of things that we need to do as educators, and so we are called to be salt and light, and really we can approach them even post this segment for just engaging them further based on the presentation. So I want to also felicitate them for their generous contribution. And on that note, I would like to welcome our very own Professor Margaret Kitui to felicitate our keynote speakers for this afternoon. Most welcome. I'll call upon Protes Cardinal Rugambwa, Archbishop of Tabora, Tanzania. Most welcome. Come, we would like to just give you a token of appreciation for your contribution. Thank you. Next, we also have Professor Leo Lefebvre. Thank you so much. And of course, a round of applause. Wasn't that a good contribution? Yes, thank you so much. Let's capture the moment. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Asante. We also have Reverend Professor Leo Lefebvre. Asante sana. Thank you. Great. Wonderful. So now we are left with our next presenters, who will only have 10 minutes each. We try to keep it crisp and clear, and we will also have a segment of Q&A. So we shall begin with Dr. Faustino Lando, Catholic University of Angola, Educating for Social Justice and Action. Most welcome.
Good afternoon. I think that I have some slides, so I would like if the organization can help us. But in the meantime, I will start. So, Educating for Social Justice and Action, this is the proposal of the topic. Because of the time we have, let me go straight to the point. So when we look around us, we notice that some people are much more valued, respected, included, and even privileged within the communities than others. And some are marginalized, disrespected, and rejected because of their economic conditions, social position, cultural background, ideological or religious convictions, etc. And more than that, we can find that many people in these conditions have been even exploited by others. And then we say, the world is not just. We are living in an unjust world. So this is our short introduction to think about what the social justice is. So we will try to concentrate in 3 or 4 points. Maybe I'll skip some of them. Previous considerations, what education for social justice is about, local and international overview of social justice, and how to educate for active social justice. In terms of previous consideration, let me say that the social justice is a very complex concept. It can be hard in some way to say exactly what social justice is about, even if I've talked some while ago about that situation, the concrete situation in our societies and communities. Is it related to the meritocracy? Is it a problem of law regulation? Is it a social or individual behavior? Is it an individual or collective duty? Is it a community commitment? There are not always homogeneous answers to those questions. And to try to answer to some of them, or at least to find some way, I tried to go back to Ulpianus, who was one of the Roman legal consultants, to try to analyze his 3 concepts related to justice, what, according to him, justice is about. But even with those concepts, we still find the concept of justice very complex. According to him, justice is about honest vivere, alterum non laedere, suum cuique tribuere. Now, if we assume that justice is an individual feeling of living honestly, that is honest vivere, as a proposal, individual proposal, or an individual commitment to not to harm anyone, alterum non laedere, or if it is an individual determination of giving to anyone what they really deserve, suum cuique tribuere, yet the philosophical question will be, what means living honestly? What means not harming no one? How and who decide what someone really deserves? So we still have difficulty to decide ultimately what social justice is really about. And we can add to those questions some other, like this one. Is it possible to build up a common understanding of this concept within a plural, diverse, and modern societies? In the society we live in today, it becomes even much more difficult to decide. Despite all this complexity, the truth is that justice remains the common social need. Because no one likes to be discriminated, marginalized, humiliated, or even exploited by someone else based on their social condition, cultural beliefs, ideological conviction, economic powerless or powerless, sexual difference, gender complex, and so on. As Amartya Sen pointed out, justice is a set of universal principles which guide people in judging what is right and what is wrong, no matter what culture and society they live in. Justice is one of the four cardinal virtues, which say Aristotle, for classical moral philosophy, along with courage, temperance or self-control, and prudence or efficiency. And as we know, virtue is good habits that help individuals to develop fully their human potential, thus enabling them to serve their own self-interest as well as work in harmony with others for their common good. Let's go to the second point, what education for social justice is about. According to the Center for Education and Social Justice, social justice is the virtue which guides us in creating the organized human interactions called social institutions. Those institutions can provide to their members complete well-being by providing them equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal treatment. Meaning that social justice is, above all, an educational issue more than a political issue. Educating for social justice is an educational approach that aims to create more equitable and inclusive learning environments by challenging exclusions, prejudices, stereotypes, biases, and inequities, and teaching students to identify oppressive structures, to critically analyze social injustices, and dismantle unjust systems, develop empathy, and engage in collective actions for positive change. I must say that this social justice approach is rooted in the social doctrine of church. As you know, the Compendium of Social Justice, of Social Doctrine of Church, says, I quote, Catholic social teachings begins with the principle of the inherent dignity of the human person. And the paragraph of Ex Corde Ecclesiae 44 goes the same way when it says, every Catholic university feels responsible to contribute concretely to the progress of society within which it works. Again, from the same document and page, we can read, I quote, "The Christian spirit of service to others for the promotion of social justice is of particular importance for each Catholic university, and it has to be shared by its teachers and developed in its students." This means that educating for social justice is mandatory at any Catholic university. Now let's go to the third point. Local and international overview of social justice. So if we look around, we can see those two pictures. The world reality tells us about the big gap between the ideals of social justice and the social justice itself, in fact, the reality itself. As Aimé Césaire and Frantz Fanon point out, the world is still divided between two opposite and antagonistic zones. The zone of the powerful people and the zone of the powerless people. The zone of the well-being and the zone of the bad-being. The zone of rich people and the zone of poor people. The zone of hegemonic culture and the zone of dominant culture. The zone of white people and the zone of black people. The zone of males and the zone of females. The zone of strong and inspiring people and the zone of weak and frightening people. The zone of heterosexual and the zone of homosexual, etc., etc. The first zone tends to decide the meaning of each of those two zones and determine what is good for each of them. How each zone should be treated. What the inhabitants of each zone deserve and who should be in what zone. And this is the real world where we are as a Catholic university and where we are supposed to be acting. Are we aware of this world as a Catholic universities? Are we engaged and committed to dismantle this unjust and polarized world by empowering our students with the social justice creative conscience? So this is the questions that one of us or any of us can answer to. Now the problem is that in many cases, the zone of the bad being is a result of injustice social systems. Allow me to remind you what Leo XIII said in Rerum Novarum regarding the conflict between the capitalist and the proletarian. I quote, "In any case, we clearly see, and on this there is general agreement, that some opportune remedy must be found quickly for the misery and wretchedness pressing so unjustly on the majority of the working class." So we are in front of the injustice and we are challenged to take position as Catholic universities. Again, this approach is also defended by Ex Corde Ecclesiae from Pope John Paul II, when he says, I quote, "Those involved in the pastoral ministry will encourage teachers and students to become more aware of their responsibility towards those who are suffering physically or spiritually. Following the example of Christ, they will be particularly attentive to the poorest and to those who suffer economic, social, cultural, or religious injustice. This responsibility begins within the academic community, but it also finds application beyond it. This is Ex Corde Ecclesia. This prophetic mission of proclaiming hope, denouncing injustices, and bearing witness to the Christian faith is very demanding and very challenging. That's why Pope John Paul II again said in Ex Corde Ecclesia, I quote, "A Catholic university must have the courage to speak uncomfortably truths which do not please public opinion, but which are necessary to safeguard the authentic good of society." Unquote. Because, as Paulo Freire from Brazil argues, as long as the oppressed remains unaware of the causes of their condition, they fatalistically accept the exploitation or even the marginalization. So, as the moderator is coming, I will just jump to the end. Okay, 3 minutes, good. Advancing social justice in education requires establishing educational spaces that foster student critical consciousness and ability to analyze the systems, policies, and practices that lead to inequitable and unjust experiences and outcomes. The education for social justice, as Margarita Bianco pointed out, occurs through 3 perspectives. The first one is social analysis, the second one is political agency, and the third one is social action. Social analysis will prepare students to allow them to get and develop ability to name and critically analyze factors that contribute to inequities within the society. Political agency enable students for the education or from the education for social justice to convince them that they have themselves as a student to believe and assume that they have the capacity to achieve effective social changes. And we can remember that the big revolution in Latin America came from the university in Argentina. So we know all about the Grito de Córdoba, so it came from Argentina. Social action, the education of social justice has to prepare students to think and to find the right strategy and the tools to challenge and dismantle the oppressive mentalities within the school environment and beyond. To conclude, I have to agree with the assumption that to authentically engage into a social education model, faculty should be open and willing to create space that encourages students to critically question their educational experiences, course content, and curriculum through a lens of self-advocacy and agency. Meaning that for social justice learning to occur, students should read the word, theories, and contribution of leaders in the field who are part of marginalized and racialized communities. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faustine Lando, Catholic University of Angola. We really appreciate it. I want to just mention as a disclaimer, Dr. Faustine has been graciously translating for us, right? And he will be actually doing that same, offering that same kind service just for the next presenter, as you may have seen from your program. The next topic is written in Portuguese, and if that serves my senses right, education for spirituality in the midst of contemporary materialism. He will take us through it, and our next presenter will be Reverend Professor Felipe Sungo, the Rector of Catholic University of Mozambique. So welcome, and so we will also take to the translation for those of us who may not be attuned to Portuguese, perhaps. You will want to use, it's in English, perfect, thank you. So it will be in English, thank you so much, great.
Good afternoon, thank you for the opportunity. Your Eminence, Your Excellencies, Reverend Fathers, organizers, distinguished academics, delegates, sisters and brothers, esteemed participants of the Secondary African Congress on Catholic Education. It is an honor to address this eminent assembly on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of Catholic University of Mozambique, Father Felipe Sungo. He conveys his warm greetings and sincere appreciation for the opportunity to contribute to this significant continental gathering dedicated to the mission of Catholic education in Africa. The theme we have been entrusted to present is Educating for Spirituality in the Context of Contemporary Materialism, the Experience of Catholic University of Mozambique. Your Excellencies, it is with a profound sense of mission and intellectual responsibility that Catholic University of Mozambique presents this reflection on a theme that is decisive for the future of education on the African continent. How can we educate for spirituality in contexts increasingly dominated by materialism, cultural fragmentation, and the erosion of ethical reference points? Excellencies, we live in a time in which human formations face unprecedented challenges: rapid urbanization, digital expansion, and the dominance of market logics create a cultural environment in which interiority, transcendence, and the common good tend to be weakened or relativized. It is in this context that Catholic education is called to renew both its identity and its transformative potential. So I will be speaking about the subtopic for the contemporary challenges: materialism, fragmentation, and loss of meaning. A critical analysis of the present reveals a profound civilization shift. Charles Taylor describes our secular age as an environment in which transcendence is pushed to the margins of public life. These diagnostics are highlighted pertinent to the African context, where traditional communities' life is increasingly replaced by individualistic logics reinforced by global consumer models. The value of education is often reduced to its instrumental utility, neglecting its humanizing purpose. Students face identity tensions, navigating between local cultural preferences and globalized environmental that prioritizes efficiency over meaning. Interior life is threatened as the speed of digital culture suppresses spaces for silence, contemplation, and spiritual discernment. So Paul Ricoeur warned that without symbols, narratives, and transcendence, humanity loses its ability to interpret suffering, evil, and the meaning of life. In this context, Catholic education cannot limit itself to transmitting technical skills. It must restore the question of meaning, which requires integrating spirituality as a central dimension of integral formation. Pope Francis reminds us that no authentic education can neglect the education of the heart. And Urbans taught not writing from the faith perspective, acknowledge that religion traditions remain essential sources of moral meaning and social cohesion. The Christian proposal an integral anthropological vision. A Christian spirituality goes far beyond the devotional practice. It offers a comprehensive anthropological vision of the human person. It reveals a coherent and fruitful framework for contemporary education. According to this view, the human person is a relation being, a free being capable of technical discernment, a being open to transcendence, a being committed to the common goal. So, as educating for spirituality, therefore means cultivating fundamental capabilities such as interior silence and self-knowledge, essential for resilience, cultural noise, ethical sensitive and the ethic of care, highlighted by Levinas, creativity rooted in justice and solidarity, central to liberation theology. So, Your Excellencies, allow me to share the experience of the Catholic University of Mozambique. Over the past 30 years, the Catholic University of Mozambique has sought to embody this vision through coherent pedagogical, social, and spirituality practice. 5 strategies X stands out. The first strategic X is related to integral formation as an institutional pillar. Inspired by Export Ecclesias, UCM promotes an education that integrates intellectual, ethical, spiritual, and community dimensions. Our faculties include transversal modules on social ethics, civic responsibility, interreligious dialogue, and contemporary thoughts. Second acts, spiritual support and pastoral accompaniment. University chaplaincy offers personalized spiritual direction, biblical study and relation groups, community service and voluntary activities, support for students facing emotional, family, or economic difficulties. This practice strengthens interiority, solidarity, and a sense of belonging. The third strategy X is related with spirituality embodied in social service. UCM integrated spirituality with social responsibility by promoting university clinics and community service centers, teachers training programs in rural and unserved zones, community outreach projects in areas of vulnerability. Spirituality becomes credible when it takes the form of concrete service. The fourth strategic acts, integral ecology and a culture of peace. In the line with Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, Catholic University of Mozambique promotes programs on reconciliation and peaceful building, research and formation in integral ecology, community activities related to environmental protection. So spirituality strengthens resilience in contexts affected by violence, displacement, and climate vulnerability. The 50 strategic acts is related to digital education guided by human values. In a rapidly digitalized world, Catholic University of Mozambique seeks to counteract technocratic tendencies through models on digital ethics, responsible and critical use of technology, literacy in media and disinformation. Technology here is integrated within a humanistic vision centered on dignity and responsibility and relationality. Going to the end, a Horizon for Africa, the Global Compact on Education. Pope Francis, through the Global Compact on Education, invites educational institutions worldwide to renew 6 fundamental commitments. The first one is related to placing the human person at the center. The second one, listen to young people and their aspirations. Third one, engaging families and communities actively. Fourth one is educating for responsible citizenship and critical digital literacy. The fifth one is promoting integral ecology. And the 61 and last is related to building peace and protecting the vulnerable. UCM explicitly embraces these commitments and integrates them into these institutional policies, pedagogical practice, and research cultures. So for conclusion about spirituality as an African pathway of hope, educating for spirituality aimed at contemporary materialism is demanding yet essentials. It means restoring the question of meaning, stimulating interiority, rebuilding community bonds, forming citizens committed to justice and peace, promoting an authentic African model of human development. So the experience at Catholic University of Mozambique demonstrates that it is possible to unite academic rigor, social commitment, and spiritual depth, offering students not only professional competencies, but also horizons of hope, courage, and transcendence. So may this Congress inspire us to renew our commitment to integral education, capable of transforming lives, strengthening communities, and illuminating the future of our societies. Muito obrigado. Thank you very much. Merci. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you so much for keeping time and also for your candid presentation. Very nice. I think you wanted to take us through the one slide that you'll see.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Just to speak, this is the map of Mozambique, and according to the map, we have been mapping where Catholic University is. So we are, as we see, we are all over the country. Catholic University we founded in 1995. We have 15 academic units, and also we have 47 undergraduate programs and 36 postgraduate programs. Within the Catholic University, we have over 38,000 students and over 3,000 academic staff. So thank you very much, and I would like to welcome to all of you to Catholic University of Mozambique. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we are going to have our last presentation, if I'm not wrong. Then we'll have a Q&A session. I just want to confirm one last time if Godfrey Mwenda is here. If Godfrey Mwenda is here, you can join at the podium. Nevertheless, then I have a feeling that this will be our last presentation. Let's have Moses Chikwe, Auxiliary Bishop of Owerri, Nigeria. Catholic Educational Institution and Interfaith Dialogue in Nigeria, Challenges, Opportunities, and Impacts. Most welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to join my voice to those of the previous presenters to thank the organizers of this conference and for inviting me to make some intervention on the Catholic educational institutions and interfaith dialogue, challenges, opportunities, and impact, the Nigerian experience. Religion and education are frequently acknowledged as potent catalysts for fostering unity among people and promoting social development. They stand out as two central pillars in development of the human person, each offering resources for intellectual, spiritual, moral, physical, cultural, and social transformation. Education shapes citizens' values, identities, and capacities for coexistence, while religion provides moral vision, ethical guidance, and a sense of shared humanity. Education and religion play an essential role in shaping societies that aspire toward peace and reconciliation. In Catholic social thought, these two pillars, education and religion, converge in the mission of the Catholic institutions, who do not merely instruct but form consciences and promote peace rooted in justice and love. Within Catholic education, teaching is viewed as a vocation, an act of service and moral formation grounded in faith and compassion. Consequently, this paper, my presentation, argues that the church institutions have instrumental role to play in interfaith dialogue. They should engage in interreligious dialogue to promote peaceful coexistence and social cohesion. By examining the benefits of interreligious dialogue, existing initiatives, and lessons learned, this paper demonstrates the vital role the church can play in promoting interreligious dialogue. Effective interreligious dialogue requires respect, empathy, inclusive participation, and sustained engagement. Through her institutions, the church can provide leadership, education, community outreach, and advocacy to promote interreligious dialogue. Ultimately, this paper calls on church leaders and all of us, the members, to engage in interreligious initiatives, contributing to a more harmonious and equitable society for all the world and Nigeria in particular. Thus, the paper recommends the introduction of comparative religious studies in primary and secondary schools, among other recommendations, where pupils will be taught from the early childhood the importance of religious tolerance, and this will positively change the thinking patterns of our people, which will ensure national development. I agree with all the definitions that have been given around education and the importance of quality education. So I will skip forward to interfaith dialogue to give a brief definition of what it is about. We live in a diverse and pluralistic world where no one religion or belief system can claim monopoly. More than ever before, there is the growing need for the various religious and belief systems to have mutual understanding, promote peaceful coexistence, and common good in an interfaith dialogue. Interfaith dialogue refers to the cooperative, constructive, and positive interaction among people of different religious traditions and beliefs. Interfaith dialogue means to hold on to one's faith while trying to understand another person's faith. It calls for mutual understanding and respect among religious people, as well as having an in-depth knowledge of our similarities and differences through both theological and philosophical discussions, as well as sharing our experiences. Through interfaith dialogue, the peace building that Jesus Christ spoke about in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5 verse 9 becomes realizable. In an increasingly diverse society, like Nigerian society, interfaith dialogue plays a key role in promoting awareness and acceptance of other ethnic and religious groups together with the values therein inherent in them. Interfaith dialogue is very much at the heart of the Church's mission. If we read the Vatican II document, Nostra Aetate, it urged Catholics to enter into discussions and collaborations with non-Catholics for the sake of promoting human values with prudence and charity. Through interfaith dialogue, we learn and witness to God by the way of our living with others. We also foster closer bonds of love among people and nations. When this love blossoms, we can achieve the prayer of Jesus Christ, namely, that they may all be one. The relevance of the dialogue in Nigeria, where there are hundreds of tribes and thousands of independent churches, cannot be overemphasized. So, educating for interreligious dialogue, how do we do that and why should we do that? So, education of the human person, as noted above, is of critical importance in every human society. Education is the process by which the human and intellectual development of persons in a society is realized. It is based on this backdrop that we underscore the importance of education for interreligious dialogue. Teaching and learning of other people's religion and culture is no less important than teaching and learning in other human spheres. It is all important part of the cultivation of and development of the human person for harmonious living. When we do not know about others, their belief system and cultures, we have the predilection to fear or suspicion and then avoidance. The consequence of this is lack of engagement with these religious or cultural others that we do not know. Because we lack this competence and confidence to engage with others in meaningful dialogue, we run the risk of mutual distrust and hatred. This is worse among the different religious groups who have not taken the time to learn of each other and made the efforts to engage in some constructive dialogue. Consequently, there is the need for Catholic educational institutions to develop a pedagogical strategy to teach students on both the importance and how to engage in interfaith dialogue. Nigeria, as a multi-ethnic and multi-religious nation, presents a good opportunity for interfaith dialogue. We are no longer to pretend to live in isolation of each other in religious matters, since we live and interact with one another as a nation. Already, people from different cultures, religions, and ethnicities are encountering each other in places of domicile, marketplaces, businesses, workplaces, in schools, and other areas of life. So there is bound to be some level of engagement. So the big question for all of us is, are Christians ready to engage with peoples of other religions? This question becomes more incisive in the Nigerian context, where the displacement of people in the northeast or the northern part of the country by Boko Haram terrorist group and other fundamentalist group has created a mass movement to the southeast. knowing to the southeast, to the southwest, to the south-south part of the country, knowing that the south, this part of the country is predominantly Christian. Then one wonders how religiously educated and prepared are the Christians in these places to navigate and to negotiate relationship with these incoming residents who are coming from predominantly Muslim enclave. Since the displaced people are here not just with their businesses but also with their religious traditions, which influences their behavior and shape their frame of reference for relationship with others, it becomes necessary to educate and equip Christians for the all-important interaction and engagement with them and people of other faiths. When Christians are educated, they become better prepared and insensitive and to encounter people of other religions in a manner that will remove fear, suspicion, and insensitivity. As noted above, the church has always placed great importance in the education of her sons and daughters. Congregation for the Catholic Education demonstrates this fact in many ways and shows the critical role education plays in evangelization. The fathers of the Second Vatican Council insist that Christians should be educated in the knowledge of other religions so as to acknowledge correctly the truth and goodness in these others, as well as to refute the errors. The church sees whatever good in other religions as preparatio evangelica, a preparation for the gospel, and exhorts its members to engage in mutual relations with the followers of other religions, as the human family stems from one stock, that is God. The popes up and down the centuries have equally promoted the education of Christians, both for evangelization and dialogue with other religions, which will make for peaceful coexistence with others. The education being advocated here is not just for those aspiring for the priesthood or religious life, but also okay, thank you. I will just skip ahead now. Okay, let me go to the challenges of interreligious dialogue in Nigeria. We see the opportunities that we have as a country to educate our people, because we have so many schools, and that provides us great opportunity to educate them right from their young age and build this foundation for them to engage in this interreligious dialogue with others. But what are the challenges that face this education for interreligious dialogue? Educational institutions should naturally be the seed ground of interreligious dialogue or interfaith dialogue. The schools should make learners understand how diverse we are, as well as the spiritual values that are inherent in other religions. So there are these challenges. The rise of single faith schools. When you have these single faith schools, they are always very restrictive in teaching the students how to engage with the religious others. The absence of joint school programs. When students meet their fellows from other schools and backgrounds, there is a cross-pollination of ideas and values. But when they don't interact with other students from other schools, then there is a problem of not having that shared understanding. Then there is the indoctrination. Some of the private religious schools seem to indoctrinate their students to understand their own religious affiliation as the only way of life. Then historical mistrust and imbalances. Past conflicts in the country have generated deep-seated mistrust and resentment between religious communities in Nigeria, as what is happening currently in the country, the kidnapping of students by bandits, the burning of Christian homes and sacking them from their ancestral lands. This instills fear in students and parents alike to continue to pursue knowledge. So because the terrorists do not believe in education and the values it brings, so how can you teach Christian students that there are positive values in Islam, and even to encourage them to dialogue and acceptance of Muslims, when they see every day they are attacked constantly by Muslim terrorists? This has become a problem in our institutions. Then the misnomer of dialogue being seen as a means of conversion, when the dialogue is perceived as a way to convert or to evangelize people of other faiths, it becomes a problem. It breeds suspicion. Then let me go to the conclusion. This intervention stems from the fact that Nigeria has a tragic history of religious intolerance, violence, and insurgency. These affect the peace, unity, and progress of the nation, and on one hand, and also the mission of the church. The call by Pope Francis for a new global education pact is important. For too long, our world has been polarized by conflicts of all kinds, some of which result from exclusivist and discriminatory mentality that we have maintained and taught from generation to generation. The human person who is lovingly raised within the family, who is taught to respect and accommodate people that are different, who is brought up to respect and protect the environment, who is educated to have the love for humanity at the core of whatever he or she does, and who has empathy for the vulnerable and the marginalized, will certainly contribute to make our world a better place. Education remains an essential and integral part of evangelization, which aims at holistic training and formation of an individual. The role of education in the church's life and mission is very outstanding. Educating Christians is necessary for interreligious dialogue, because the whole enterprise of dialogue requires adequate formation and a well-grounded knowledge of the doctrines of the church. It will help Christians to be formed in their faith and have informed knowledge about the religions of the others. Educating to interreligious dialogue cannot be overemphasized in our time, because by its very nature, interreligious dialogue is adaptive. Since interreligious dialogue adapts to local churches, local cultures, traditions, and worldviews, people need to be acquainted with the basic prerequisites and especially of the sensibilities and sensitivities of their own locus for a better and meaningful encounter and collaboration with members of different religious backgrounds. Finally, I wish to end on this note. The church has to evangelize by educating the people, and through education, bring about evangelization. Thank you.
That was a very powerful presentation on inclusion and appreciation of diversity. So a hearty round of applause for the three presenters. So we have very little time. I know most of you are tired. You didn't quite get the rest you needed when you jetted into Kenya. And so for that reason, we are trying to manage the time just to enable you to also get the needed rest, deserved rest. And so if there is a burning question, we'll take maybe just one or two. Thank you. Please, let's have the microphone there. Let's quickly take the microphone. Fine, good. Yeah. Is it? Let's have the ushers down there with the microphone.
Thank you very much, presenters. I have two questions. One to the presenter who talked on education and social justice and action. And then the other will be to my bishop chairman, part of which he has answered with his conclusion, but I still have another. To the question on education for social justice and action. What can a university lecturer who has labored judiciously and merited a monument but denied by government do? And what do you think teachers in Catholic schools who feel not satisfied with their monument, what do you think they should do? Then to my bishop chairman, the last question is taken, so I will not ask. You've answered it. But then to number one. This is going to be a little narration, but a question. A son of a lecturer who was lecturing in one of the Nigerian universities on interreligious dialogue was killed. His father was killed before him while he was a boy by an Islamic terrorist. And he knew the Islam. To this terrorist and to the life of this vulnerable daughter. Thank you.
There's one more here. Let's take one from Sister in the middle, and then we can have them answered at one go.
That we need to educate our students to interfaith dialogue. I'm just wondering, what can we do practically? What initiatives are we taking in our Catholic learning institutions to engage our learners into practical dialogue? Because the people of other religions, they are in our institutions. Thank you very much.
Dr. Wairimu.
Thank you. Mine is to the auxiliary bishop from Nigeria. Is there state-sanctioned violence against Christians in Nigeria?
Okay. That's been noted. Lastly, two more. I think I saw. Yeah, there's one there. Another one is closer to you. Let's take this one first, then we'll get there. the microphone. If there's another usher with a microphone to that side, that last aisle.
Thank you. My question is to the first two speakers. The question was raised yesterday about, I see they are busy. Sorry. Yes, the question is actually the two of you about where did we go wrong with Catholic education? I wonder, could you approach that question from your perspective of spirituality? Yes.
Thank you. I hope they're actually jotting them down. I would appreciate if they just focus on that only, because you'll answer at one go all the questions. So we have two more. This one, sister also had one more question. They're directed to different speakers. So.
Yes, about the role of education for transformation. Concurring with the sister Caroline asked about practical ways, like in the religious dialogue. I was also thinking about social justice, because even the presenter said education is the key, is more of social justice is more of education than maybe politics. That's what they said. But I was thinking that maybe for our reflection, and even as you will be thinking of the recommendations, that can we not think of practical way of dealing with these issues in our institution, first of all, including issues we're talking about critical thinking. Could we ask, do we have that course maybe for the newcomers on social teaching? Can it not be also in our institutions, because they are Catholic institutions for evangelization, as one of the presenters said, that people know what the church teaches on these issues, then including AI. Can we not have programs? Then with regards to the outside outreach programs, how can we engage the general public? How can we engage politicians? Can we have maybe special programs maybe on media for the general public? Can we have programs for politicians, for example, maybe trainings organized by the church? Thank you.
We have one more last question, and then we will have each of them respond, and from there we will make a conclusion. Thank you. Yes, sister, go ahead. Yes.
Je voudrais dire merci à Monseigneur qui est intervenu sur le dialogue interreligieux.
They need a translator where I am standing so that they can be able to someone who can translate in English. Then please go ahead and answer.
Alors, je me demande si le dialogue interreligieux n'est pas un langage de sourds, parce que j'ai observé qu'on éduque les catholiques à la paix, on éduque les catholiques à la tolérance et à l'accueil de la diversité. En revanche, du côté des autres religions, notamment l'islam, il y a une sorte d'absolutisme. Alors, comment est-ce que les catholiques envisagent une interaction avec celui qui, en face de lui, ne réagit pas ou n'entre pas en conversation avec lui? Comment on peut trouver la paix dans la relation chrétien et musulman s'il n'y a qu'une seule partie qui s'exerce effectivement à cette paix-là? Merci, Monseigneur.
Thank you, sister. So we are going to begin with the first one. Dr. Faustino Lando, you're ready to answer your question? Your questions.
Não sei se o padre lá está, gostaria de responder em português, não sei se me permitem. I don't know if the priest is there, is translating.
Yes, Father is there, right, at the control room.
Okay, he's there. Okay.
Right.
Então,
responder em português para tentar ir mais a fundo da questão. A questão que me foi colocada consiste em saber o que é que os professores que não recebem os seus salários do governo devem fazer. E a segunda, e aqueles que não estão satisfeitos com esse salário, o que é que devem fazer? A minha resposta é, a primeira, em relação a aqueles que não recebem, temos que saber se existe um vínculo jurídico laboral com o governo. Porque nós não podemos reclamar um salário de alguém de quem não tenhamos um vínculo jurídico laboral. Portanto, se temos o vínculo laboral, jurídico laboral, há uma obrigação da parte do patrono a nos garantir o salário. Estou a ver, as pessoas estão a baixar microfones, parece que não passam. As I can see you are pausing your microphones, it means that it's not working. May I continue?
I will pause and then we get it
It's working?
checked. If it's working, anyone you can put up your hand. On this side it's working, it's working. On that side, is it working? It's working? No? That side? That side is okay for a few. Please, the MC, if you just put up your hand, somebody will assist you from where you are, from the control section. Right behind there, there's one person who is struggling, and also in the middle. So, please go ahead.
Ok, então, muito bem. Estive a dizer, primeira nota é saber se existe um vínculo jurídico laboral com o governo. Se existe esse vínculo, já é matéria bastante para que o professor, nesta condição, possa reclamar o direito que tem, porque já não se trata de favor, é de um direito. E, tanto, é até alguma coisa que tem a ver efetivamente com a justiça. É justo que o professor receba o salário pelo trabalho que presta ao governo. Portanto, aqui a discussão nem sequer deve existir. Se o governo não paga, está a incorrer num crime, portanto, deixa de garantir ao trabalhador aquilo que é dele por direito. Portanto, não estamos a falar de um favor, mas é direito do trabalhador. E cada um de nós deve ter essa cultura jurídica de que quando se trata de direito, não há negociação possível. E, portanto, algumas vezes, infelizmente, as instituições jurídicas internas nem sempre funcionam em condições. Mas se elas não funcionar, existem mecanismos para que o trabalhador possa pressionar a entidade patronal a lhe dar aquilo que é seu por direito. Portanto, não creio que haja aqui alguma negociação possível. Portanto, uma vez que exista um vínculo jurídico laboral, há uma obrigação que se desenha diretamente na esfera de quem contrata e recebe serviço dos outros. Portanto, estamos perante um contrato bilateral que em direito se chama sinalagmático. Portanto, não há aqui discussão nem conversa sobre isso. Há apenas uma exigência e um lado que se obriga a prestar e outro lado que tem esse direito subjetivo de exigir do patrão aquilo que ele deve. Portanto, isto é em relação à primeira pergunta. Em relação à segunda pergunta, e aqueles que não estão satisfeitos, aqui também temos a ver com o contrato que nós assumimos, porque ao assumirmos o contrato, nós, a priori, já sabemos qual é o salário que nós vamos receber. Se eu aceito aquele salário aí, então o termo já está estabelecido. Se eu aceito logo assinar o contrato, que o salário que vou receber é esta, entra como dever de sindicatos, na medida em que a vida vai mudando, o câmbio vai subindo, que os trabalhadores, por via do sindicato, possam reivindicar a subida de salário. Mas, em princípio, aquele que foi consignado, aquele que foi o objeto do contrato, é o salário que o trabalhador pode receber. Agora, naturalmente estamos a falar da justiça social. Diz-nos o Papa João Paulo II, na encíclica Laborem Exercens, que o trabalho justo é aquele que toma conta, que possa satisfazer as necessidades dos trabalhadores, dos seus filhos, da sua família e de todos quantos dependem do trabalhador. A questão que se coloca é: será que os nossos salários têm sido, desde essa perspectiva, salários justos? Isso é outra questão que também nós, como trabalhadores, temos que reivindicar, porque é direito, de facto, que haja um trabalho justo para um salário justo, um trabalho digno para um salário digno. Portanto, isso seria a minha resposta em relação às duas primeiras perguntas de São Paulo. Em relação à pergunta da nossa irmã, penso que Chuku, espero não ter falhado em nome. What goes wrong? O que é que falhou em relação à justiça social na nossa universidade? Eu penso que essa é uma das questões que o padre levantou ontem. Eu acho que nós, como igreja, temos a obrigação de fazermos uma análise muito profunda e crítica sobre a dialética entre o direito de dizer e o fazer, entre o que ensinamos e o que vivemos. Ou, como diria Habermas, a tensão entre a facticidade e a normatividade. Porque muitas vezes pode haver alguma incoerência entre as normas que nós estabelecemos, entre o discurso que nós assumimos, entre as pregações que nós fazemos